Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Angie Musgrove and he is Aaron Stokes. Happy 2025 to you all. We are back for the first Monday show of the year, and what an episode we have lined up for you. We're going to look back on another win for Newcastle United, this time over Tottenham. It's now 6 in a row in all competitions for the Magpies, and what a run it has been. We'll look at how United got the better Spurs, plus look ahead to the Carabao Cup semi-final first leg against Arsenal on Tuesday evening, and chat about transfers as well. All that and more coming up. As always, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. You know what to do by now. Click the link in the podcast description box and help protect yourself, help support the podcast. Let's get on with the show. Aaron, Happy New Year. Happy to see you in person. You exist. I've been getting withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, it feels like a long time since I've been on the pod. When was the last one I did? Was it post Villa, post Boxing Day?
Yeah, I think
I feel like we
Villa.
were in that weird period, weren't we, where you don't know what day it is. It's between Christmas and New Year.
Everything rolls into one.
Everything rolls into one. We were riding high off the back of a solid win over Aston Villa, and since then, since I last spoke to you, they've continued in fine form.
It has been unbelievable. Did you have a good New Year?
Good New Year. Yes, a long New Year. Set off from 7 o'clock from Newcastle to drive down to Cotswolds. Went to a lovely wedding and then had to power through till midnight because I was ready for my bed. Saw in the New Year, went to sleep, drove back the next day, and yeah, now it's back to normal, isn't it?
I was ready to go to bed at 8:30. As soon as I put the little one down, I was like, I could really just go to bed.
Did you make it to?
I did,
yeah.
And if I had gone to bed at that time, I wanted to, I would have been woken up because Grimsby and New Year in Grimsby is something like nothing else I've experienced. The amount of fireworks that were going off at midnight, it was like something from the Blitz. It was unbelievable. You couldn't see any of the colour. You could just hear the noise and the big flashes in the sky. So it would have woken me up. But yeah, had a nice New Year. Nice to just spend it with family. That's the key thing, isn't it? And back to the daily grind day, nursery drop off.
Oh, how was she?
Well, do you know what? And parents, you'll be able to relate to this. All throughout Christmas, the 2 weeks she's been off, getting up at 5:30, 6 a.m. every single morning. Today, had to be at nursery. Didn't get out of bed till 8:10. Got to drop them off by 9 o'clock. Unbelievable. And then I walked into the office and realised, got Weetabix all over me, all over my pants. So she's conveniently managed to do that. I don't know how, but yeah.
You can't say we're not glamorous on this podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, Weetabix stained shirts.
We keep it professional, don't we? But yeah, I hope you guys have all had a new year, great festive period as well. And it's becoming something of a regular thing. This isn't it? A positive hour of chat about Newcastle United, a 5th win in a row in the league, 6 in all competitions. Where does this victory over Spurs rank for you in that run? Is it the most important of that run of games or not?
I think it's definitely one of the most important. I think Manchester United was another big asset test for them, even though Manchester United, as we all know, had been on a pretty poor run. Others will say, look, Tottenham were depleted, didn't have the best squad out. I don't know. It's very, very important. And I think the reason that's important was we spoke, didn't we, about them beating Leicester, Ipswich, Villa, and we said, that's great, but they should be beating those teams. The real two tests were going to come in the games that I've just mentioned that, we haven't spoke since. Manchester United blew them out of the water in the first half and sort of had to weather a little bit of a storm, but they saw it out. Tottenham, again, played really, really well, weathered a little bit of a storm late on. Not so much as a storm as I think Tottenham should have won, as Ange Postecoglou has pointed out, which we'll go into. But they certainly had their work out. I thought they saw the game out well, a few nervy moments, but really assured performance. And the key word of Eddie Howe's press conference in the last couple of weeks has been confidence. And I think that's what we're seeing from not just the players, but as the collective now as well.
Well, I was thinking about the answer to this question on the way in today. And for me, it is the most important win. And many people, as you've said there, might be watching this and listening to this and saying, what you want about Manchester United, that has to be the one that is the most important in the last 6. But it's different because Man United was fantastic, did not get me wrong, but it was personal between the two clubs. And Newcastle United only won there 2013. Before that, I think it was 1972. So it was about those two clubs. But on Saturday, it could have been anyone lining up against Newcastle United. Different kind of victory. And for me, it was all about the test. It was important to see Newcastle United have to weather a storm, have to be tested. Because as you said, they've beaten Leicester, rubbish. Ipswich, dire. Villa down to 10 men, and Man United awful as well. They've gone and done what you expect them to do. What a good side does. Beat the poor sides. If you're going to be Champions League contenders, title contenders in the years to come, you've got to beat the sides that you expect to do. They've done that. Brilliant. But I was always wondering, when is this test going to come?
Yeah.
When's the real test going to come? And it did come against Tottenham. I wanted to see Newcastle penned in, as strange as that sounds. I wanted to see them not have it all their own way. I did. I did, because I think the benefit of that coming through it could be huge. Yeah. And I talked about, after the Man United game, that kind of mental boost of beating a team like Man United. And I think this is in the same bracket as well. It gives you a psychological boost when you've had to really throw your body all over the place.
Yeah.
They were making some fantastic blocks, last-ditch defending at times. And I think the fact they came through that with a win when it wasn't all their own way, I think it could be massive. And that, for me, is why this is the most important win, not just of that run, but I think of the season potentially.
Yeah, possibly. And I think just on that, if they had beaten Manchester United 3 or 4-0, if they had gone to an injury hit, an illness hit Spurs and beat them 3 or 4-0, we would probably have people like you, Mr. Pessimistic, over there. Well, who have they beaten? They've beaten teams that they should have beaten. But as you say, and that's something that I wrote about yesterday after the game, they've swapped these really clear-cut wins and performances against these lesser teams for really gutsy, brave character tests of wins in games where the Newcastle United of old might have cracked. Manchester United were putting a little bit of pressure on. Tottenham at the end had 4 or 5 chances to really get the game back to level footing, and they couldn't do that. And I think it's at this point of the show I should put the question to you that I've been dying to ask, and I've actually had people messaging me and on the phone to me the last couple of weeks saying, I need to know what Andrew Musgrove's thinking. Can we finally say that they're back?
I think so.
Hey,
I think
thank
so.
the Lord. We've only been waiting Well, I mean, I've been saying it for weeks, but now we finally got it from Mr. Pessimistic.
I'm just naturally cautious. I'm Mr. Cautious. That's what I'm not pessimistic. I just didn't want to celebrate too soon, and it could have all fallen apart. But I do think the run of games they've been on, for all we say Leicester and Ipswich were really bad. The different kind of elements to those victories, beating the sides who should low block or did low block, or Leicester, beating the guys down there battling for survival, beating Manchester United, a rival who you don't beat at all at Old Trafford, and then beating a side like Spurs who, without the injuries, would be in and around Newcastle. Like, there's so many different psychological boosts out of those teams I've mentioned, and Aston Villa as well. Like, it's not just about the victories. It's a much more than how many points they picked up. 15. It's much more than the 15 points they've picked up. I think mindset-wise, it's huge.
And it's because of what's happened before. How many times have we seen Newcastle this season go on a good run, lose at home to West Ham, hammer Brighton at St James's Park, come away with nothing, go away at Everton, struggle, have a really good first half away at Brentford, lose 4-2. That's what makes it a little bit more, important. They've had this run. They've now found that consistency, which has been lacking all season. They've put in performances that we knew they could put in on a consistent basis. And look, they go into Arsenal tomorrow full of confidence. Arsenal, not at their best this season, missing some key players. Look, it'll be tough away from home. It always is in North London. But I tell you what, I think me, you, everybody listening to this, every Newcastle fan goes into those games 10 times more confident than they would have been this time last month, 6 weeks ago. So much has changed.
I'm confident. I think they'll get a result down at the Emirates. And I've said it as well since the draw was made.
If you are just tuning into this podcast for the first time, you watched us live, thank you for the first time. This is a man in Andrew Musgrove who has been booking off Carabao Cup weekend. He's booking the trains down already. He is so confident they're going to get there. And I've been Mr. Cautious in this. I've been saying, no, they need to get there first. But I know it's the cliche and everybody's saying it. If they can get a decent result down there tomorrow, maybe snatch a draw, I think you bring them back up here to James's Park, and I will be like you. I'll be
screw that. Go for victory. Let's get the win. We've got Kevin saying, let's not compare results. They all had their own merits and contribute to the overall picture. We won in different ways, which is really encouraging. I think Kevin has an absolutely spot on then. Going back to the game against Spurs, Martin Bradford didn't have too much to do. He made a save from Saw. Later on, Solanke had a header. The defence just looked very, very secure. There was a few more desperate lunges and hoofs away, but I think they were in relative control. Although the stats, Aaron, don't paint the picture I thought that I was painting, or I thought that I was watching on Saturday, because only one last-ditch challenge, according to SofaScore, which was from Botman. 8 clearances apiece from Tino and Byrne, but only 3 blocks. So maybe it wasn't as big as a test as I thought, although Spurs did have 67% possession to Newcastle's 33 for the second half, and made 290 passes to 146. So you can see the elements of control there. But it was a test, wasn't it, towards the end of that game?
Yeah, it was absolutely, and I think on another day, if Spurs had grabbed a point, I think we would probably say, okay, Newcastle had to weather a little bit of a storm. Don't know what Andrew Postecoglou is saying, that he thinks they should have won the game. They did have chances later on, but the key stats, Newcastle United had more shots on goal, created more big chances, had a higher level of XG. On top of the stats that you've just pointed out there, I don't think it was a clear-cut backs against the wall performance from Newcastle. I thought they played very, very well for 70 minutes. They became very disjointed at the end as Howe made the subs. Joe Willock playing as a central striker, fatigue coming in for some of the likes of Botman and Bruno in the middle. And Tottenham did have their chances. Maddison flashed one wide. Johnson's hit the post. Solanke's had a couple of good headers. But I don't think Tottenham can feel too aggrieved with the chances they created, not taking something from that game.
And we'll get on to good old Ange in a moment, because he has gone down in my estimation, the way he's reacted to this defeat, and I'll explain why in a moment. But let's talk about the goals. 4 minutes gone, Dominic Solanke gets the opener, gets the better of Sven Botman to head home. And it was a real reintroduction, wasn't it, for Sven Botman so early on. And actually, maybe, looking back, you say it was good that it happened so early on. So then that kind of really focuses the mind. Look, Botman got the wrong side of him. He looked a little bit nervous in the opening 10, 15 minutes or so. But as the game went on, he grew into it.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, okay, he went off with a bit of cramp. He looked like he'd been never out the side.
Yeah, he did. And I think that's credit to not only Botman, but how they've managed him behind the scenes, both Eddie Howe and the recruitment team. Eddie Howe said publicly this morning in the press conference that he's essentially been ready to be included in the first team since Aston Villa. I mean, what's that, nearly 2 weeks ago? They wanted to give him a little bit extra time. He was suffering with a little bit of illness, I think, behind the scenes. He got caught a little bit cold, but you can understand that 4 minutes in against Tottenham. But what I will say, unbelievable cross from Pedro Porro. Absolutely superb. And that was absolutely fantastic centre forward play from Solanke. Really good movement, really clever header. But yeah, Botman got caught cold. He couldn't let that affect him. He didn't. I thought he came through it well. As you say, a little bit of fatigue at the end. I would suspect, I know we'll probably talk about it at the end of the show, I suspect he will probably keep his place in Cher's absence tomorrow. Maybe a little bit of a risk, but I think him and Burn on Saturday probably showed more than having Burn and Kelly there.
Well, Eddie Howe was asked about Botman's chances of playing against Arsenal because, as we said, they did come off with cramp against Tottenham. There was some fear, especially from the commentators on duty, that it was a muscle strain, but I think you could look at it and you could see it was with a cramp. What did Howe have to say about his chances of playing tomorrow?
Eddie Howe, as always, keeping his cards close to his chest, but he did say that Botman naturally had a little bit of fatigue at the end of the game, and he said that he's going to ask Botman what he thinks. He knows what Botman's going to say, and that is that Botman wants to play. But he'll also ask the medical team, the doctors, the coaches, and see what they think. I think in an ideal world, he would probably like to take Botman out the team if Cher was available. That obviously isn't the case. I was actually surprised he started him on Saturday. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But we were talking about it before Eddie Howe came out on Friday, just between us in the press room, about who he would start there. And it was just sort of, there wasn't really much appetite, certainly from us, about Kelly Burn. They're both left-footed. I know obviously just Sven Botman is, but he's a lot more comfortable in his right than Burn or Kelly is. And I don't see how you can really take him out of the team after such an assured performance on Saturday. The only slight worry is, 2 games against 2 really good opponents in a couple of days after such a long layoff. Maybe a little bit worried, but you speak to Eddie Howe and you really get the sense that they're confident Sven Botman is in that team because he can be, he's fit enough to. And I think if it's the choice between Burn and Kelly or Botman and Burn, I think you go Botman and Burn again.
Yeah, there wasn't much appetite, I don't think, from anyone to see Lloyd Kelly partner Dan Burn, but I thought that's what he would do. And to be fair, Kelly came on the final 2 or 3 minutes, and I think he won a couple of really important headers. And I know he's got a lot of critics out there, and he hasn't impressed. Look, he's let me down a lot because I said he was going to be one of the best free transfers the club's ever made. I still think he's got a lot to offer. I think he's not been helped by the fact Lewis Hall has just been unbelievable. Dan Burn has been fantastic.
I was just about to say, yeah.
But I think he made 2 or 3 important headers after he was introduced, and he might have to play tomorrow. And if he does, I hope he has the backing of everyone, because at the end of the day, the clue's in the name. It's Newcastle United, and you can have your opinions, but he will want to win as much as Sven Botman would if he was playing.
I think personally, if I was in Eddie Howe's shoes, I would probably go Botman, Burn tomorrow, and then saying, right, Lloyd Kelly comes in for Bromley. you probably rest Botman against Bromley or even Dan Burn in that cup game, and you give Kelly a run out. It is a shame for Kelly because, yes, he hasn't really impressed, but as you say, it's been very, very hard for him to get in that team because Dan Burn has arguably been one of the players of the season.
Unbelievable. And we will get on to Dan Burn and whether he was lucky to escape a second yellow in the game against Spurs in a wee moment. It didn't take long for Newcastle to get level, 80 seconds or so before Anthony Gordon equalised. It was a goal that really angered Andrew Postecoglou. Luka Bergvall plays the ball off Joe Linton's hand. The midfielder's hand is down by his sides in such a clear, natural position. Bruno plays it into Gordon, who finishes past the keeper. Andrew Postecoglou absolutely fizzing, absolutely fuming, without actually saying it. I don't think he said it in black and white, but he just allowed us to read between the lines. He kept saying, if all things were equal and balanced, we would have won that game. And whether he was hinting at Newcastle's opener, he said, you can talk about whatever you want. You want my opinion. If all things were equal and balanced, we would have won. We had plenty of chances. Our football was outstanding considering everything we were going through. If it was an even playing field, we would have won. We're going to get into this second. I just think he's apt. I can't stand him. But anyway, to the point about the handball, can you see why he's a little bit angry?
I can see why he's angry. I can see why Tottenham fans are angry. But what they should be angry with is the Premier League's rule book rather than the decision that was given on the pitch, because by the letter of the law, Joe Linton's ball was in a natural position. Technically, it was in the middle of the park. Yes, it led to a goal, but the Premier League rule states if it hasn't directly led to a goal, as in Joe Linton has assisted or scored the goal, it doesn't count. Look, if the shoe was on the other foot, we would probably be sat here going, the rules need to change. But we can't have a go at referees, which we often do on this podcast, and VAR, and then, not say, look, they've got it right here, and they have. Tottenham will feel aggrieved, but I thought the referee got it right. And it's just one of those where, if that handball had happened in the box, I think that gets ruled out. It didn't. Newcastle capitalised on it.
Like I say, it is the rules. There's nothing that Newcastle United can do against that. And Joe Linton stops to a certain degree. I think he thinks he's going to get penalised. And I can see why Spurs fans and Ange are angry, because the rules say unless he directly influences a goal. And the point being, he stops the ball.
There was 3 touches from Joe Linton handballing it to Anthony Gordon scoring. I think even we could admit with our black and white tinted spectacles on, that has led to a goal. But by the letter of the law, in the Premier League rule book, it hasn't. But this is a point Eddie Howe made on Saturday when he was asked about it. He doesn't understand the rules. I don't understand the rules because I don't know if it's just me, but I hadn't heard that rule before. No. I thought that handball would have been given, and I was really surprised the goal got given. But we know now afterwards why, and it was the correct decision.
But the rules are such a mess. You had Gary Neville and the Sky Sports commentator determined to rule out Joe Linton's header against Manchester United, and then there's a certain fraction of the arm that if it hits, you're talking about inches. Yeah. You had Bruno's goal ruled off against Aston Villa,
on the line.
which again, that didn't look like a handball to me. The rules are such a mess, but I can understand why Ange's a little bit angry. But what I can't get over, it's just his manner and persona. There are ways to go about getting defeated. There are ways to go about showcasing your anger, and what he has done post game, it's an embarrassment.
I've got a theory that there must be something in the water in North London, because that's 2 North London managers who have had meltdowns at the expense of Newcastle United and refereeing decisions. And Mikel Arteta's up next. You might see another one on come Wednesday morning. Ange Postecoglou, there's a great clip going on Twitter. Someone's dug out from last season where it's essentially Spurs have got a decision. It's gone against the opposition, and Ange just came out and said, look, at some point we need to just say the referee's decision is final. It seems that he conveniently left that thinking at home on Saturday. Surprised by that? I know you just said there you're not a fan of Ange. I don't really have any opinion of him, but I don't really disagree with him. But on Saturday, I thought that was really, really over the top. And the reason I thought it was over the top, you can be angry at the Joe Linton one, you can be angry maybe at the Dan Burn one, but Anthony Gordon, that is a penalty. On another day, Dominic Solanke gets punished for kicking Martin Dubravka in the chest, going for that challenge. That was not a Spurs team that were completely done over by the referee. That was a game where the referee got a couple of things right and a couple of things wrong for both teams, I thought.
I just think you can be angry, but just handle yourself in a better way. We've seen when Newcastle have been on the wrong end of poor decisions, of VAR's got it wrong. Eddie Howe's so gracious in defeat, or he's so gracious when the decision goes against him.
And he'll make the point that he doesn't agree with it. And even this morning he says, I think that is a clear penalty on Anthony Gordon. But it won't dominate the news headlines because he says maybe one or two sentences about it and then he moves on. I mean, that BBC interview he did after the game, where I think it was 6 times in 1 minute 50, he repeated that phrase you brought up. If all things was equal, it was.
But I mean, maybe
it was embarrassing.
Maybe it's a good deflection tactic to another
manager
defeat for him. But yeah, just quickly on Dan Burn, I think he was fortunate to get away with it.
I don't.
I think he makes himself bigger, and I think if it's, as you said, the shoe's on the other foot, I think we'll be calling for a second yellow there.
But does it hit his arm, or does it sort of graze his armpit, his chest? I don't know. I didn't think that was a second yellow offence.
I have to say, my bigger concern about Dan Burn was in the moments afterwards. He had quite a bit of a wrestling match with Dominic Solanke, and there was one moment where I turned to my brother-in-law and I said, "This is where maybe Bruno's lack of experience as a leader comes through, because what you need now is someone going to Dan Burn and just saying, right, rein it in, because you've literally just bear hugged Dominic Solanke there. On another day, you're getting penalised and you're getting a second yellow." So that was my bigger concern, but he gets away with that. But I agree with you, the Anthony Gordon incident. In real time, I didn't think it was a penalty. I thought it was a coming together. But what changed my mind was, I think it was 2 or 3 minutes later, when James Maddison runs towards Newcastle's box and Botman just stands in front of him, gets booked. And for me, there's no difference in what Botman did and the Spurs midfielder.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of people after the game trying to sort of justify it by saying, "Oh, well, it was accidental." I'm not being funny. It doesn't matter whether it was accidental or not. Kulusevski gets in the way of Gordon, stops him essentially moving past him, taking a shot. I was really surprised that VAR didn't overturn that.
So was and then obviously Botman gets booked for something very, very similar, which is just very, very annoying. But yeah, Joelinton's goal, it should have stood. It did stand. What I liked about the goal, not Joelinton, sorry, it was Anthony Gordon. What I liked about the Anthony Gordon goal, though, was if you watch the build-up, just before Joelinton stops Spurs from going forward, you can see how well the midfield are working. Mm-hmm. You've got them pressing really in the Spurs' faces. And all throughout the game, they were working very closely together, but they were being aggressive. If one went, the other one hung back. It was well worked. It was organised. And I think that goal just kind of showed you the ingredients to why Newcastle's midfield three were so dominant. And we have to point out as well, Spurs didn't make the same mistake that Man United did and only played 2. They played 3. Mm-hmm. Previous games, Spurs have played only 2, and that's in the midfield. So clearly, Andrew's looked at that and gone, right, we need to try and stop Newcastle's dominance in the middle. It didn't work. Mm-hmm. And you just look at that build-up to that goal for Gordon, the way they were working, triangle, close together, beautiful.
Well, there was a brilliant stat that came up after the game, and that was that Newcastle's midfield 3 ranked as number 1, 2, and 3 for distance covered without the ball in that game. And I think, as you say, the build-up to that goal was key to that. Newcastle didn't have the ball, they were on the back foot, they're defending, but Bruno was busting a gut. He maybe got caught a little bit out of position when Spurs were breaking. Joelinton's obviously there, playing deep, stops the attack with his hand, let's be honest, but as we've talked about. And Eddie Howe spoke about it this morning, they're not just good with the ball, they're now very, very aware of what they need to do without the ball. And for someone like Sandro Tonali, so there's the stat there. Sandro Tonali, 5.2 kilometres, Bruno, 5 kilometres, and Joelinton, 4.5.
And this is both teams, and
this is out of the full game, out of possession, without the ball, distance covered.
I mean, if your midfield 3 are topping the list out of the 22 players on the pitch, you're going to win the game.
Yeah, and this is on top of what we've seen them doing with the ball. How much better does Bruno look higher up the pitch? That's now 5 assists in the last month for Bruno in Newcastle. I'd love to know how far you'd have to stretch back to get the previous 5 when he was playing as the 6. Sandro Tonali looks fantastic as the anchor. He has just got such an engine on him. I keep saying it every week, but I can't get over how fit he is physically. He just never looks like he needs to come off. And Joelinton, as we say, has started slowly this season. We were even talking on this podcast about whether it was time to drop him out. I think in recent games, he's really been back to his best.
Is it the best midfield in the Premier League right now?
Yeah, look, I think it's up there. I don't know if it's the best. And Eddie Howe was asked about this morning, and he wouldn't give an answer. It's definitely up there as the best. When they're all working like they are, I think there's very, very few that can do what they do, and very few that complement each other like they do either.
Unfortunately, though, Bruno will not be playing against Arsenal in the League Cup first leg on Tuesday night. That's a huge loss, isn't it?
Yeah, massive, because he's been in a really good vein of form. Eddie Howe will probably look at it and say, look, it'll be good to get a rest in him because he's played a lot of games recently. As to who comes in, you suspect Sean Longstaff, because that is just a like-for-like swap. Sean Longstaff comes to the right side of the midfield three, plays in that 8, can sort of get high up the pitch, which he likes to do, and you don't have to change the system. So I would be surprised to see Willock or Miley come back in. But I would like to see Miley get some minutes, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I hope Miley is one of those that starts on Sunday against Bromley.
I would like it to be Miley tomorrow night. It won't be, but I would like it to be, because I thought Sean, when he came off the bench against Tottenham and he was only on for a limited amount of time, I just wasn't impressed. And
tricky game to come into.
It is.
He only had a couple of minutes.
Yeah, but you're doing I don't want to jump in on him because it's a positive podcast, but I thought he'd give the ball away 2 or 3 times, and he just looked a bit careless in possession. And look, it's hard to get into a game with so limited time to do so. Or can you really get properly warmed up? Can you really get a feel for things? No, and as you said, it's a difficult game. But there was an instance around the box where he just looked kind of devoid of, I guess, confidence and an idea what to do with it, and then he actually ended up running back. And then the ball was given away. And it's things like that. You just think, oh, it's a big stage tomorrow against Arsenal. But then it's a big stage for Lewis Miley to come back. It's a difficult decision. I think it will be Sean. And I really hope that he puts in the performance like we know he can do, because he can be a very good player.
It's also one of those games that I think might suit Sean Longstaff, because we always talk about how Sean Longstaff is better at those games when Newcastle maybe don't have as much of the ball, because he isn't that technical. He doesn't have that maybe eye for the pass that Bruno does. But what he'll do is he will cover that ground. And as we've just touched on there, those off-the-ball running stats, if you want someone to cover ground in Bruno's absence, out of those 3 that could come in, it's Sean Longstaff.
Yeah, but you need the man to pass the ball, don't you? Like Bruno, is Miley's a better passer of the ball than Sean.
Joe Willock comes in and you move Joelinton out to the right, or you have Joelinton on the right?
I don't know. Joe Willock, I don't know. He looked like he was running through a bit of treacle again. I know he was playing up top, so it didn't really help. But I think it's a difficult one.
Been a weird season for Joe Willock, isn't it? Because it's only 6 or 7 weeks ago that we were talking about, him being the key. He had a really good run of fixtures when they beat Chelsea and Arsenal. We were talking about him, Joelinton, Hall. Maybe it was more me than you. But yeah, look, he's got a lot of work to win his spot back.
We've got Truel saying, I hope Longstaff doesn't play. He was awful. I know he plays 2 good matches, then reverts back. So Miley for me. Longstaff isn't good at all. He's a squad player and should never start. Paul says no Longstaff, please. Niall says Sandro is the catalyst to the upkeep in our great form. So let us know who you would play instead of Bruno tomorrow night with the Brazilian suspended. Still in the first half before Newcastle United get their second goal, Gordon had a chance which was saved, a little bit off balance, but another good performance from him. And obviously, he had a lot of critics very early in the season, but the past few weeks, he's getting right back to his best, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think there's any coincidence. He's been shifted back onto that left permanently, hasn't been shipped around from pillar to post, and we're seeing a really good, consistent run of form from him. What I really loved about the goal, I know we're obviously moving past that, but the way he took it on his left, how often have we seen him cutting on his right? We thought, no, I'm going to take this on my weak foot. Really good finish. He's been really impressive. I think, it's hard to really point out any Newcastle player in the last 6 or 7 games that hasn't impressed, but I think Gordon was probably one of my 3 or 4 standouts on Saturday. I thought he was really, really good.
Yeah, and he got a whack to the nose as well. I wonder if he's broken it. It looked like he might have.
It looked like a really nasty gash on it, really deep cut. But Eddie Howe spoke this morning and said he doesn't think it's going to be anything serious.
Newcastle had another chance quickly after that. Murphy put the ball across the box and Isak poked it wide. You'd have bet your pension on score, and then Gordon was fuming as well.
I was just about to say, if he'd left it, Gordon would be having a second.
But I just want to talk about Murphy, because we know how much Newcastle need to upgrade their right wing. We know they need to go out and do that. And Mr. Mbeumo had another stormer for Brentford, didn't he, over the weekend?
Million, not the price tag.
But Murphy, I thought he was really good against Tottenham. And he doesn't really do anything special, but what he does do is what Isak wants. That ball in the box, and in that first half in particular, he must have put in 3 or 4 balls across the box. One of them finally ends up in the back of the net. I thought he was really, really good at just doing what a good old-fashioned winger does, and just putting the ball in the box.
Well, we've talked about this in the pods for so long, haven't we, about how direct he is and how when you have Miguel Almiron, who in that position wants to cut back on his left, wants to take an extra touch, isn't comfortable getting to the byline and crossing with his right, to coin a phrase from somebody, it's quite refreshing just to see a right winger get his head down and just drive the ball across the box. It's something we've picked up on recent weeks. His partnership with Isak is getting better every week. They've got a really good relationship on and off the pitch. And as you say, he knows where Isak's going to be. We saw it for the goal. He might have got a little bit fortunate with the touch off Dragozan, but he has proven really direct. He's adding goals and assists to his game. I thought when you brought that up, you were going to come to me and say, does it negate Newcastle's need to sign a right winger? I think we can all agree it doesn't. But for the time being, that spot is his. Nobody's taking it from him. Harvey Barnes isn't going to get a look in. Miguel Almiron, for as long as he's at the club, has got a real tough task on his hand to even get anywhere near that level. He's the man for the moment, and he's playing really, really well. He deserves the credit because he doesn't often get it.
No, it doesn't at all resolve the need for a new winger on that right wing. Will it happen this January? I stick by what I said a month ago. I could see them getting to the end of the window and not signing anyone. I think they need to move someone out. Eddie Howe was asked about the window today in his press conference. I've got the quote there. I'm setting you up for it.
Well, yes, I do. I do have it. Yeah.
Just before you do that, I just want to quickly mention something on crosses. So Jacob Murphy's put 42 crosses in this season. Only Lewis Hall and Anthony Gordon have got more in the Premier League than Jacob Murphy. That shows you exactly why he's in there ahead of Harvey Barnes and Miguel Almiron. But they do need someone on the right wing. What did he have to say, Eddie Howe, about transfers? Because that's what everyone's talking about now.
Yeah, well, there was two direct questions. He tried to bat away the sort of speculation about Dubravka and the Saudi links. He wouldn't really give an answer on that. Pressed further on sort of incomings and how slow this month could be. He said, I'm not on the front line, so I'm not speaking to agents, other clubs, others around the club will have a better understanding than me. I don't think it's taken too many turns from how I thought it would be. But that's not to say anything is cut and dry. It might just take one big move somewhere to start a chain reaction. We're ready for anything. We're able to be flexible. Now, on that, as you've just touched on, if somebody comes in with a bid for Sean Longstaff, Miguel Almiron, Kieran Trippier, dare I say Joe Willock or Harvey Barnes, one of these fringe players, I think Newcastle will spend. But as you say, I think someone needs to go first. I think that's the general consensus that's coming inside the club. On outgoings, and again, I obviously haven't been on this podcast since the presser Friday, but there's a really interesting part of Howe's pre-Tottenham press conference where he said, we don't want to lose Martin Dubravka, but sometimes you have to respect the player's wishes, which I took as he wants to go to Saudi Arabia. You can't really blame him. He's 36, got a new child, going to get a big payday. Asked about that today, Eddie Howe says, the business logic is taken over from the football logic. There may be football decisions you'd like to make. Nothing was bigger than the previous summer when we had to lose two highly promising young players. We had no choice. We were forced to. That is very much the business taken over from the football, and we are still in that position. And I think that is them saying, we are going to lose players we don't want to lose, and that is Martin Dubravka, because at the minute, he's Newcastle's number one for the time being. Some would even say when Nick Pope comes back, he doesn't deserve to lose his place. But I think we are going to see Martin Dubravka go in the next couple of days.
It's funny though, isn't it? You know, talking about players, Eddie Howe talking about players that he doesn't want to lose, but his opinion differs to Newcastle fans. A lot of Newcastle fans. So if Sean Longstaff goes, not too many Newcastle fans, I think, will be disappointed with that. Thank you for your service, but on you go. Whereas I think Eddie Howe would be disappointed to lose Sean Longstaff. So it's that fine line, isn't it?
But I think Eddie Howe is now also having to come to the realisation that in previous windows, he's fought so hard to keep players at the club. 12 months ago, to the day pretty much, is the prime example. Kieran Trippier, Bayern Munich. If that was this window and Bayern Munich came in, I think Kieran Trippier goes in a heartbeat because they need to. Last year, Eddie Howe said, no, we need to keep him. Yes, they had a lot of injuries. That was maybe a mitigating factor. They couldn't really afford to lose anyone. This time around, if an offer comes in, even if Eddie Howe wants to keep them, I think they go.
I think I could see Sean Longstaff going.
I don't know if he'll go in January, but I think in the summer potentially. They've taken an extra year out. He doesn't run out of his contract till 2026. But I think January. It's hard to see who the suitors are because we're talking about Newcastle and they're fairly out of spend. But we're a week into the transfer window and it doesn't even feel like it's open. Nobody in the Premier League is making moves, and that is because I think they're all sort of scared into silence by PSR.
Yep, indeed. We've got Chris saying, I trust Miley over Longstaff every day of the week. And he says, I agree. I want it to be Miley, but it will be Longstaff. Niall says Sean is going to play because I think we're going to park the bus and try and get out with a 0-0. Gary says, I trust whoever Eddie picks, if I'm honest. He seems to know the players better than anyone else. And Kevin says, Longstaff will play tomorrow in a more solid approach. Quite a few people are saying they trust Eddie on the decision that he makes. I totally agree with that. Let us know in the comments your pick for a January signing. Who also you think may go this January from Newcastle United? Omar says Happy New Year. I think Longstaff will go to Everton. I mean, let's say Longstaff is on the shopping list of some Premier League sides. How much do you think Newcastle United should try and get from?
Well, another year stuck on his contract. I think, what's he worth? 15?
20 maybe?
20 maybe, if you're feeling... I mean, look, if we wanted to say, if Newcastle wanted to say 20 million and say, look, this is a player who has played, I mean, last season, I'm pretty sure only 2 or 3 players made more appearances as Sean Longstaff. He was in the squad week in, week out when they made the Champions League. He played in the Champions League. This is a really experienced, established Premier League player who has got the backing of his manager. So I think they can probably chance their arm for 15 or 20. Definitely not anything less.
Omar says no one will pay 15 to 20 million, 10 million max. And we've got Niall saying, can we get Matt Target out on loan? I can't see him leaving in January. I think Eddie Howe just likes to have those numbers. And I think Target...
And I think a loan moved. The only person that really suits is Matt Target, isn't it?
Yeah. David says, Andrew's correct. We need to get a few out at least. If we can get a couple in, that would be lovely. But I would twist and go for it for that Champions League qualification. That's the really interesting question, isn't it? And I always think back to when Mike Ashley decided he was going to bring in Pape Cissé 6 months ahead of the original plan because Newcastle were going strong under Alan Pardew. And in the end, they ended up finishing 5th and missing out on the Champions League. Do you think the fact that Newcastle are 5th here, they're going really, really well, does that twist the arm of the decision makers at the club where they think, do you know what, we want to be in the Champions League and we need the Champions League to keep some of the players that we've already got here, and also it's looking like 5th place will be enough for that? Do we somehow try and make the numbers work to go out and spend 25, 30 million on a player who can get us over that line?
It's weirdly, it's just something that I've wrote about today, that exact thing, and it's the fact that they've just seen them beat Manchester United. They've got 11 clear and 12 clear of their Manchester United and Tottenham. They're now just a couple of points off 4th, 3rd, 5 points off 2nd. Usually this would be the time to say, right, let's spend, kick on and firmly cement that place. I don't think it's as simple as that. And Newcastle United, if they could spend, would be spending. And I don't think their league position changes that. I think from our point of view and fans' point of view, it probably heightens what they need because we're all sat here saying, just go out and get one player. But as we know, the money just isn't there unless they can get players out. Is it going to make them work harder to maybe shift some players out? Probably. Players that wouldn't necessarily go.
I think what it does, it just reaffirms what a mess the financial rules are, because why shouldn't an ambitious team, and it doesn't just apply to Newcastle, it applies to Nottingham Forest as well, who are up there.
And even Villa, who are going to have to sell again. It's
when you can see the prize so close to you, and it's there, Champions League qualification is there. In the old days, you would be going out and spending money to bring in the 1 or 2 players to get you over the line, and your reward would be Champions League football, and you would recoup what you spent in the season after you qualify. But you can't do that anymore because the rules don't allow you to, and it's such a shame, not just for Newcastle United, but for the competition element of the Premier League. I mean, imagine if Newcastle and Forest finished in the Champions League ahead of City, ahead of Tottenham, ahead of Manchester United. It would just blow the Premier League, up, wouldn't it? It would just open it up, and then it would allow Villa or Forest or Newcastle to build on that consistently. Mm-hmm. And it's such a shame that we're sitting here and we're saying, yeah, they'd love to spend. They'd love to go out and sign a new striker. They'd love to go and splash 70 million on Brian Mbeumo, but they just can't. The frustration is just, it just angers me so much.
I think the big thing for me is that when you look at Newcastle United's business of late, they've now gone 2 windows back to back where they haven't strengthened Eddie Howe's first team. They've brought in squad players, cheap players on a free like Lloyd Kelly. But if Newcastle United don't strengthen Eddie Howe's first start on 11 this month, that's 3 windows in a row that they felt they haven't been able to do it. Now, I know, obviously, you've got to go back the last 3 years. They spent a lot of money when Eddie Howe came in. They spent a lot of money on Alexander Isak in that summer. But when they've grown their revenue, as they have, they've got new sponsorship deals in. They haven't spent, as I say, for nearly 18 months. The rules aren't fit for purpose. We know this.
Yeah, hopefully they will change sooner rather than later. And just to reaffirm, Aaron nor I want them to be able to spend endless amount of money, but we want them to spend a little bit more than they can.
Push, yeah,
want it to be fair, but we want them to be able to compete as well. Craig says we need 3 players to complete the starting 11. If there's someone for one of those positions, we should get them now and get the other 2 in the summer. And that's the other frustration. I mean, I think they are that close to having a top 4 side, and it is 2 or 3 new arrivals of real quality and a real addition and a big price tag.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to if they could, they would, but they can't.
Yeah, and I think as we've talked about a lot this season, they're at such an advantage this year because they've got no European football. There's no Thursday night trips to here, then everywhere like Chelsea. There's going to be no Champions League nights like Arsenal. They've got a real chance now to really steal a march on the pack. But as you've just said, you look at that team and think, they could really cement their place as a long-term disruptor if they just strengthen in a couple of areas, which obviously at the minute they can't do.
A lot of people are asking about the value you can get abroad. Sam says there's still plenty of value to be had in and around Europe in the transfer market. We have to start taking advantage of contract situations and clauses. Jonathan David, one of those at Lille, who can now be spoken to. And look, Newcastle United and people you speak to, it's been made quite clear that they are trying to target those maybe less well-established markets abroad where there is a bit more value for money. It's one of those, you can go out and spend maybe 20 million less and get a real talented player. But especially in the January market, you want someone who can hit the ground running, don't you? It's just about getting that balance, I guess, though.
Yeah, but I mean, look, you've got to look at their track record when they do go further afield. Sven Botman, Bruno Guimaraes, Alexander Isak, who all came with, expectation rather than experience in the Premier League. And they've all, some quicker than others, hit the ground running. I think it's been interesting in recent weeks to look at some of the players they've been targeting abroad. I mean, the big one of the last couple of weeks, and you don't know how much this has been pushed because of who his agent is, that being George Mendes, Cristiano Ronaldo's agent. But Abdul Kadir Kuzanov, the Uzbek international who's at Lens, really heavily linked with Newcastle. And it's been really interesting noticing that his price tag's 25 million. Now, if you've got him, who's maybe a little bit untested, compared to Mark Gay, who was 60, 70, 80 million, I think you take that gamble on going abroad for 50 million cheaper, and that, maybe that promise and that expectation rather than the Premier League experience. They've gone abroad before and it's worked so well, and I think Paul Mitchell has such a good track record. I think we'll see more foreign signings. David
says we are going after young English talent. Tyler Diblin's been mentioned, and McAteer as well. So a couple of names there to watch. A Gay type player in the summer, maybe a quality backup for Isak is his shop on this. Craig says, what we going to pay for Gay? Why can't we use that this January?
I think Newcastle had that money to spend on the promise that somebody was going to go. I think if Mark Gay had came in for 60, 70 million in the summer, it wouldn't be a question that one of their big boys would have to leave either this month or at the very, very start of the summer, as in before the end of June. It wouldn't be a question. That obviously didn't happen. Newcastle probably do have a little bit of money there, but they know they're close to PSR. Even though they're going to turn a profit this year, it looks like for the first time since the takeover. I don't think they want to get stung again, being forced in the last days of June to have to sell someone, and they certainly don't want to sell somebody this month. So they're sort of balancing that out like that.
Sam Mulner says that your centre-back mentioned there isn't worth 25 million.
Well, he is the oracle of foreign signings, so we'll let Manchester City take the hit on that one, and hopefully Newcastle move on.
Richard Austin says, thank God for Murphy carrying the load at right wing. How do you think Harvey Barnes is feeling at the minute? Such a great option at left wing in case Anthony Gordon is injured. He doesn't seem to work at right wing, and I wonder if he'll be content. You'll not be the only one asking those questions. Back to Saturday's game then. We had, as you mentioned there, Alexander Isak getting the goal, poking home. He looked very relieved to finally see that one heading in the back of the net. That's 9 in 7 games for him. 7 consecutive games he's scored, and only Alan Shearer and Joe Willock have matched that. He's absolutely brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah, and we've seen a wide range of goal, haven't we? We've seen that absolute screamer at St James's against Liverpool, but then we've started to see some of the more scrappy poacher-type goals from Isak. I still think if there's one part of his game he needs to work on, it's those one-on-ones where he's sort of bearing down on goal, keeper comes out. He's started to panic in recent weeks, especially at Manchester United, where he chipped that one into Onana's gloves, didn't he? But the positives are he's scoring those really scruffy goals, and it's perfect with a player like Murphy, as we've touched on, who just wants to get his head down, get to the line, stick a ball into the danger area. And Isak, as we say, just seems to have this telepathic ability, doesn't he, to know where Murphy's going to put it. 7 games in a row, as you say, only Willock and Shearer have matched that, and he just looks like every single game he's going to score.
But you know what? I thought he had a pretty poor game by his standards on Saturday. I thought there was 1 or 2 opportunities where his touch let him down. There was a wonderful ball over the top in the second half where he's got the beating of the defender and he tries to lift it over him and he just gets it all wrong. There was a few bad decisions when he was on the ball as well. Didn't have a good game, but as you say, he still looks a threat, and that's the beauty of a proper striker, because they're not always going to have brilliant games, but as long as they put one of those chances in the back of the net, it's what you want. Quick word on the speculation, because we don't want to dwell on it too much, because he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere, and Arsenal and Paul Merson can keep on dreaming, but it is going to be relentless, ladies and gents. And I said on social media, strap yourselves in, because yes, the speculation will end come the end of this month, but it'll open, well, it might not even go away, to be fair, and it'll be there throughout the summer. Newcastle putting a £150 million price tag on his head. We said this a few months ago. It's that to begin with, isn't it? Because I think he's worth every single bit of that, if not more.
That's what the auction starts at, 150, I think, yeah.
He's if Arsenal want him and other teams want him, you've got to pay the money for who is the best striker in the Premier League right now.
But we've just spent the last 10, 15 minutes, haven't we, talking about PSR and how not just Newcastle, but other clubs cannot spend. I really do find it a bit laughable that Arsenal fans and other fans and general commentators and media pundits think that Arsenal are going to magically find £150 million on the sofa. That is a huge deal. Maybe not for a club like Arsenal, but I mean, look, it blows the record of the Premier League out of the water by 40 or 50 million. And what that would then have to do, that would then have to lead Arsenal to do in terms of sales would be, would it even be worth it? From Newcastle's point of view, they're not going to sell in January. I highly, highly doubt they're going to sell in the summer unless the player wants to move. And I think on that point, that's why it's so crucial Newcastle get Champions League. Europa League, you probably keep them. If they fall out of Europe again, they fall off a cliff. I think you probably see Alexander or Isak angling for a move. Because at this moment in time, it's hard to see a team in the world that he doesn't walk into.
I think if they get Champions League for next season, I think he stays.
Yeah,
don't think there's a question that he goes. And with Newcastle 5th in the league and 5th looking like it's going to be enough for a Champions League spot, this has to be the aim now.
Yeah,
it really does. There's no point talking about just qualifying for. Let's say the words: Newcastle United. They're back, ladies and gents.
Mr. Cautious has ripped the band-aid off.
Look around. Around. I'm cautious, but as things go on and momentum builds and the team gets better, then my opinion shifts to what is realistic and what they can be achieving. And there's no point hiding away from the fact that right now, Champions League is a massive prospect and should be the aim.
And just looking around the league, Manchester United and Tottenham look like they're going to be nowhere near it unless they have major revivals at the minute. Arsenal and Chelsea have that, as we've touched on, that European aspect. They're going to be focused on the Champions League. Chelsea will want to win that Conference League under Maresca in his first season. And then you look at, can Forest really keep this up? You don't know. Can Villa sort of get back into it? They're still in the Champions League. Everything is falling into place for Newcastle United. You feel like, honestly, one signing and it would be nailed on. It's not that simple, but they've got everything going for them in their favour, and they've found a consistent run of form at such a crucial time as well.
Yeah, indeed. Just quickly then, a reminder that this episode is brought to you by NordVPN. And I made a bit of a mistake in one of the previous episodes, which plenty of people have pointed out to me. I encouraged you guys to sign up to NordVPN and protect a certain device, which I'm not going to repeat.
I think you should.
Should I repeat?
You should give them.
That's it. Yeah. I might have to put it like a warning at the start.
You shouldn't.
I encouraged you guys to protect your brand
new
spanking devices, and I meant to say brand spanking new devices.
That was meant for your other podcast that you do about the spanking.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm definitely going to put a warning out about that. Thank you for that, Aaron. He is making that up. But yes, apologies. I hope no one signed up under false pretenses.
I think that made more people sign up than it would have just doing the usual.
The amount of text I got in, you must have had a good Christmas. But anyway, if you've got some brand spanking new, yeah, that's right. devices over Christmas, your iPads, your tablets, your mobile phones, whatever it might be, and you want to be get yourself protected from the scammers and hackers out there, as well as support the podcast, hit that link in the podcast description box to get a very special discounted NordVPN plan. And look, if you've thought about doing it and you haven't done it yet, please do it, because it supports the podcast so much. It helps us do this for free to bring you the content, and you get something out of it as well. You get this wonderful podcast, I like to think, and you get your devices protected, because one subscription goes up to 10 devices. I mean, that is value for money, really. And there's loads of that device benefits from it as well that you can take advantage of. So please do sign up and protect your brand spanking new devices. Thank you very much. Second half then, Spurs made a couple of changes and control seemed to go towards them. I thought Newcastle defended brilliantly, though. They defended bravely at times as well. Lewis Hall getting some important blocks in. But as we said at the start, Martin Dubravka not really having too much to do.
Yeah, weirdly, Dubravka probably had more to do in that last half an hour against Tottenham than he has in the last 5 games combined, because he has had it quite easy in recent games because of how well Newcastle have played in front of him. They weathered the storm well. You know, a couple of chances on another day probably would have went in. Maddison had a really good effort. Johnson hits the post, but I thought Dubravka looked assured both with the ball and without it.
But the Maddison chance was probably only one of 2 times Newcastle switched off, which again shows you just how organised they are at the back.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this in previous weeks. I do think it's down to having Martin Dubravka at the back. I think he just brings this air of assurance to the back line.
Well, I think that the big thing for me noticing, obviously not on the pitch, obviously, I watch from the stands, and when the ball goes back to Nick Pope with it at his feet, I sort of have to take a big deep breath and sort of hold myself until he's kicked it out in a touch, basically. Whereas Martin Dubravka gets the ball, and I just think
you look away.
Yeah, because I just think, exactly, he's not going to lose it. He's looked very assured. Yes, as I said, he didn't have too much to do with his hands in the last 5 games, but bearing in mind where we were with Martin Dubravka this time 12 months ago, because I remember this time pretty much the day, New Year's Day 2024, they just got beaten off Liverpool. They got a hammer and they conceded the Premier League record for shots on goal, and Martin Dubravka was woeful. He couldn't save a shot down to his right last season. He had that long period where he replaced Nick Pope when he dislocated his shoulder, and I thought his time at this club is over. He's been so much better this time around.
Admittedly, he hasn't had too much to do, and he's got a bit of grief from certain sections of the fans for the save he made against Saw. And in fact, he pushed out towards Brennan Johnson, which I thought was very, very harsh on him. I thought he had to get there.
I think he's played well.
But as to kind of first says, it's down to Tonali's new position first and foremost. And yes, Martin Dubravka isn't the sole reason that they're performing better at the back, but I do think it's a big reason. But of course, Tonali being the anchor is also the other big part of it.
Tonali being the anchor is massive. That midfield 3 working is massive. The pressing from the front has a big part of it. I mean, what are we now? 52 minutes in the podcast, and I can't believe we haven't spoke about Tino Livramento, who, by the way, was unbelievable on Saturday and probably man of the match. He's been fantastic. Lewis Hall keeps getting better somehow. You think there's no way he can get better than he was last week, and he just manages to keep going from strength to strength. That back 5 is really working. I say there'd be big question marks. If Martin Dubravka stays, there will be question marks as to whether Pope comes straight back in. And I just want to caveat this, because I know people in the comments, people listening will be saying, Martin Dubravka's not the answer. He's not long term. For the minute, he's doing fantastically well. As I said, I think he will go. But if he doesn't go and they manage to persuade him to stay and he stays beyond the end of the month, real questions as to whether Pope comes in. I think Pope will come back in, but Dubravka hasn't really put a foot wrong.
Is James Trafford the answer?
I really like Trafford. We've just waxed lyrical about Dubravka with the ball. James Trafford is fantastic with the ball at his feet. He learned it all at Manchester City. And look, I had worries about his shot stopping, but you look at Burnley this season, they've been so solid defensively. James Trafford has played all but one of their games in the Championship. The only one he missed was back in August when there was a lot of speculation about his future. And they've conceded 9 goals in 25 or 26 games. That is a remarkable record. I think he will be much better for the last 2 seasons he's had. He had a really bad season at Burnley last year because they went down. He's having a fantastic season this time. He's big. He's got the ball at his feet. I really wouldn't be against them going to sign him, and Eddie Howe likes him.
There we go. We've got Gary saying, how long is Pope expected to be out? We know he's had Injections into his knee.
Yeah, he's back in very light training at the minute. He hasn't rejoined the group. I think they penciled in potentially Wolves, if not Bournemouth, maybe. So yeah, I would say maybe in the next week or two we'll see him back in some form.
We've got Gary saying, so we've got David saying, we will not be an easy touch as far as prices for players, and Mark Gay is no exception. Lay down a bid and walk away if they dither. I mean, how important is it for Paul Mitchell? Because we say there, it's been X amount of windows since Newcastle have signed someone who can really change up the team. Tonight, probably the last one. How important is that Paul Mitchell lays down a marker after the summer that he had? Can he? Do you think he will go this window without signing anyone?
Yes, I mean, no, I don't think they will, but I can see it as a possibility. And I don't think Paul Mitchell will be looking at this thinking, I personally need to make a signing. Other people from the outside might say there's pressure on him, but I mean, Paul Mitchell, doesn't just oversee transfers. He's got his, he works really, really closely with Becky Langley and the women's team. He'll deal with the youth setup, the academy. They'll be looking at players that can bring through. We've worked with Steve Harper, with Shola Amiobi and Jack Ross on the loans. I get the question about there maybe being a little bit of a need for him personally. I think certainly if Newcastle have a really long, drawn-out transfer saga, that ultimately sees them not get the player like we saw Gay. The pressure might build a bit, but I don't think he'll be under any sort of great need to sign them. And I think he knows more than anybody. It's not that simple. They don't have the money to do it, or do something that they would really like to do.
Well, let's have some quick fire transfer questions before you get into the trivia.
Okay.
Final game for Martin Dubravka against Arsenal?
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Sean Longstaff to stay?
Beyond the month?
Yep.
Yeah.
Harvey Barnes to leave this month?
Sorry, should he or do I think he will?
What do you think will happen?
Harvey Barnes, I don't think will leave.
Joe Willock?
I don't think he'll leave.
Oh, hello. I'm
trying.
Where go on, Miggy?
I think Miggy will go.
Kieran Trippier?
I don't think Howe wants to lose him. I don't want to lose him, but I think he might go. I hope he doesn't.
Rivals wise?
If Martin Dubravka goes, I think don't be surprised if they bring a keeper in. I don't know whether it'll be James Trafford, and I think if it would be Trafford, no, I don't think they'll be able to get Trafford in this window. I think if Miggy goes, don't be surprised if they get a right winger in.
Craig says Mitchell must have a good summer. He did nothing in the last one. David saying we have professionals running our club now, and the cartel are panicking knowing our club mean business. And Craig says Trippier, Almiron, and Dubs and possibly Target to go out in this January transfer window. Just quickly then, the game against Arsenal at the Emirates, massive. Confident?
Yeah, a lot more confident, as we said at the top of the show, than I would have been a couple of weeks ago. Not only because of how well Newcastle are playing, but there's just something off about Arsenal this season. They aren't playing their best football. They've been, rightly compared to Tony Pulis' Stoke City at time, which I think is fair. They've turned into a little bit of corner merchants. They're missing key players. Bukayo Saka, obviously out. Havertz wasn't in the squad on
Timber,
Saturday.
Havertz, Sterling,
yeah.
Thomasai, Ben White.
Yeah, a lot of players out. I mean, Saka's the big one. I know, obviously, Lewis Hall kept him quiet in the fixture earlier this season, but Newcastle playing well, Arsenal a little bit shaky. Put them together, I think they get a good result.
Bruno share, isn't it?
Yeah, but then I think, as I said at the top of the show, stay in the game tomorrow. I know you're saying, go for the win, go for the win. I think if they can just snatch a draw, and you'll never hear me saying that because I want Newcastle to win every game, leave there with a 0-0 or 1-1, I think confidence will be so high for that return leg in a month's time. And I think they get the final.
Well, there you go. You can follow that game live on our website, chroniclive.co.uk. Give me a prediction then.
I think it'll finish 1-1.
Okay. I'm going to go 2-1 to Newcastle. 2-1 to Newcastle.
Where's Mr. Cautious gone, honestly?
Yeah, I just can't help it. I'm just
Is
feeling
2025 the year of optimistic rather than pessimistic?
The drought ends. The drought ends. I don't know. Right. Anyway, enough of that because I'll get accused of jinxing it. Yeah. Get my words out. Come on, then. You've got the trivia this week.
I've got the trivia this week to end the show. So, in honour of Newcastle beating Tottenham on Saturday, we're going to have a little bit of trivia to do with that. So, I've just got my calculator up. I want to actually get my stopwatch up because I'm going to put, should we say a minute? Should we say 90 seconds on the clock?
Whatever. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing yet.
I'm going to go 90 seconds on the clock, and I need you to tell me as many players as you can that have played for both Newcastle and Tottenham There's 19 in total.
Okay.
I'm going to wager that you get... I mean, looking down this list, there's a lot of well-known ones. A lot of big players have played for both. I'm going to say you'll get 10 in 90 seconds.
I'll go 12.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Stephen Carr.
Yeah.
Les Ferdinand.
Yeah.
Jonathan Woodgate.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Good start. Then I've slowed up. We're there. Sebastian Bassong.
Yeah.
Trying to think on the wings. What do you mean, Genius?
Yeah.
How many of these are Gaza?
Yeah.
So how many are pre-Gaza?
Oh, see, it's 19 in the Premier League. So I'll give you Gaza.
Okay, right. 19 in the Premier League. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look in the comments either because that's cheating. Let's see. So, something I made. I'm trying to keep also. I don't want to be silent in this podcast, so I'm
going to give you some clues.
Come on,
think
give us the clues.
Think about a manager who could sell James Trafford this month.
Scott Parker.
There you go. Think about a winger who you think didn't
Real
really perform it. But
No, with that, I thought he did perform. I thought he was badly treated. Was Real Fox?
No. Think of a Newcastle winger you think didn't have a good spell at Newcastle. Numbers wise.
David Ginola we won the PFA Player of the Year, didn't he? At Spurs.
Think about two fullbacks that both played for Newcastle, Tottenham, and Sunderland. One on the right, one on the left.
Castle, Tottenham. So I can only think of Patrick Van Aanholt.
No.
Paul Bracewell. Barry Venison.
American.
Oh, DeAndre Yedlin. Yeah. The other one's American?
No, the other one's English. And that's time. And you got, I mean, you needed a lot of help, but you did get 10 as I predicted. So the ones that you missed out of the 19 were
cool.
Danny Rose was the other fullback. Andros Townsend, Kieran Trippier.
Of course. But you know what? I never think of
you don't think of players who plays. Kevin Scott, Wayne Routledge, Sol Campbell.
Oh my God, yeah.
Kevin Scott, Nabil Bentaleb,
of course,
and Gary Brady.
Do you remember the sign Bentaleb?
Yeah.
He's one of those that just what might have been.
Yeah, crazy.
That was brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
Let me know in the comments how many people you got. We've got someone saying Basing Bong, who I think you got that wrong, Craig.
We'll do the same next Monday. Players that have played for Newcastle and Bromley.
yeah. Well, actually, there is a young man who plays up top for Bromley. He was a lifelong Newcastle United fan. Good. He was at Wallsend Boys Club. And he is a long life Newcastle fan. He's absolutely buzzing, as you might suspect, to be playing hopefully at St James's Park. Did they win yesterday, by the way, Bromley?
I want to say they lost
because they've got on a great run.
But I might be making that up.
They
lost 4-1 to Crewe on yesterday.
Levi Anamarchi, he is the man I'm talking about. Yeah, Wallsend Boys Club. He played for, and he's a lifelong Newcastle fan from what I've seen on social media. But yeah, first of all, I've got to deal with Arsenal, let alone Bromley. So there you go. Thank you very much. Craig says it was an autocorrect. He wasn't actually calling someone Basim Boyne. Thank you for clarifying. Omar is not a fan of Asuda. He says if Asuda doesn't score against Bromley, ... Seems quite a threat, that. Yeah, but let us know in the comments what you think the Arsenal score is going to be. Let us know who's going to come and replace Bruno Guimaraes, and let us know you think Newcastle will get to sell this January, hopefully to help boost the chances of bringing someone in. For myself and Aaron, we will see you next Monday on the back of hope for Newcastle beating Arsenal and progressing through to the next round of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Remember to hit that link in the podcast description box for your brand spanking new devices. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news, and we'll see you.